Hello, and welcome to my show. My name is Bret. If this is your first time here, this is YouTube Live. You know where you are on the internet, and we do this every week. I'm on here on Thursday, same time, and sometimes I have guests, sometimes I don't. I'm excited today because I have a long-time guest that I have not had on the show long enough or often enough, and we're going to get to that in a second. But just in case you're new here, please, thank you so much to all those people that are Patreon supporters. You know who you are. Thank you so much. And if you want to get updates on this channel, like who the guests are going to be every week and what other open source I'm creating, maybe some course updates, you can just go to patreon.com/Bret Fisher. You don't have to sign up to give me a coffee every month, but there are special benefits for that. You can just scroll down there, click the little follow button, and you can just follow the announcements. Basically, you get like an email a week. Not too bad. But thank you to all y'all at our patrons, rather. I guess that's the right way to say it. We also have a Discord server you can see right above me where we do chat about DevOps all week long. That is free, and you can go check that out. at devops.fan. Well, again, let's just get straight to it because I don't want to keep him waiting. I'm excited to have on the show today. I would like to consider him a friend because we've known each other for years now in this space. Nigel Poulton.
Hey, Bret.
Thanks for being here. I've got, later we do the DJ horn when you have the serious throwdown of excitement. The origin story for us, by the way, is that we were both Docker captains way back in the early days, and we met at DockerCon, I believe.
Yeah.
I think that was and I don't know. We kind of hit it off. I think one of the things I've always appreciated about Nigel is he doesn't hold his punches. He'll tell you how he totally feels about something, and he's honest, and I love it.
I was kind of super worried about what you were going to say there, by the way. That's okay.
Is that acceptable? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you've taken his courses or been in any of his workshops or read his books, hopefully that honesty has come through to you, because that's what I really appreciate about him. Is he will tell you when he doesn't know, and he will tell you what he really thinks about something. And that's not so common in this space.
When I tell you I don't know, Bret, that is more often than you would think as well. That's like all the time if you're in a conversation with me. Yeah. I'm not shy about that.
I often think that the show just like podcast titles, something like, I don't know, let's figure it out. Like that would basically be my daily activity with whoever I'm working with. Yeah. I don't know, let's figure it out. Or let me Google that for you would be another good podcast for having friends on, is we're going to talk about whatever. And we have tons to talk about because it turns out that Nigel and I have a lot in common. Everything from our fandom of everything Star Trek to our love of Docker and Kubernetes, travel.
Can I tell you something else we've got in common, mate?
Yeah.
This grey stuff that we've got going on in the beards, mate. I feel like, no disrespect, I think you're a little bit ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of jealous about that, actually. Once it starts coming, I feel like it might as well just all be grey and not just have these little wispy bits. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. It is. It can be problematic when it decides to be on one side or the other and not.
Oh, yeah.
And like one side of your face is older than the other, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the problem with the internet is now that we have all these videos everywhere forever. And I go back and once in a while stumble on a video that's only like 3 years old. And I'm like, man, I aged a lot over that.
Mate,
and I'm going to blame it on Docker.
Have you got like the beauty filters on for me, please?
Oh, those are enabled. Those are enabled.
Cool.
It's as good as it's going to get.
Uh-huh.
So, thank you for being on the show. All the way from over across the pond there. You actually have the map of your area of the world behind you.
I do. Is my video flipped? Yeah, it is. So it's this hand. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, too far, because there's a little bit of a lag on the video. Right there.
Yep. Yeah. So, and it's been years since I've been to Britain, so it's a place that I long to show back up at, and someday maybe we'll be able to fly over there easily and just hang out in that city. I wanted to jump to a couple of quick announcements about, you may not be plugging your stuff, but for those that are not aware of all the crazy stuff that you do about Kubernetes, Docker, not so much in the real world anymore, but virtual conferences. And we'll talk about your website in a little bit because you upgraded it recently, and it's very nice. But you have this Kubernetes Community Day. So if anyone is around the UK or able to get to the UK, you're going to be at this conference here in just a couple of weeks. Is this a virtual thing?
That's right. So I believe I'm joining virtually. Yeah, though there are a couple of things that are cropping up for me now where people are saying, hey, if you're cool to travel to London, then we've got like something going on, or you can join virtually. This one, as far as I'm aware, because like I'm really bad calendar-wise, I'm pretty sure cause I've got a few things going on, but this one is virtual. But if they were to say, we'll like do it in person, and I could like get a train ticket or whatever, I would be there in a snap, believe me.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately yesterday we decided to pull out of KubeCon LA just because of the increasing cases in the U.S. and they're basically they implemented the mask policy last month. I think they changed the policy for KubeCon, so now you have to be vaccinated and wear a mask and be 6 feet apart and all that. And I just started to realize I'm actually really bad at. I can't tell who you are by your eyes alone.
I know.
I don't know if it's a mental leap that I just can't make, but I'm going to basically walk around that conference and not know anyone because we're all going to just see each other's eyes unless I recognize your outfit. So
yeah, like we're super desperate to get back to it, but I feel like it has to be done right. And we've got to, of course, we've still got to be super careful about this. So nobody's asking like to do anything crazy, but I want, when I first go back to something like this, to get the full fat experience, if the term works over there in the States. I'm not after like a Diet Coke experience when I go back to KubeCon or anything else. I want the full hog.
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of my hope. You know, I think that's all of our hopes, right? A couple months ago before things started to get worse with the Delta variant. So for those of you that are still committed to KubeCon, good on you. I will hopefully see you at the next one, but we'll be definitely doing something around KubeCon, at least virtually, and I'll be a part of the virtual experience. That they're doing both this year, so it's kind of nice.
They're calling it hybrid, aren't they?
Hybrid, yeah. Everything's hybrid now. Hybrid cloud, hybrid conference.
Yeah.
I have a hybrid life. I live most of it in this machine, and then I have
this
other thing. So, so what else have you been doing? Like, obviously, you have this Kubernetes this month stuff that I'm going to just promote for a second because this is pretty neat. Actually, it's funny because your head goes over your head on the website.
I know. Yeah, my head goes over my head.
This is like a real interactive web page. So, for those of you who don't know, you have this series. Was it monthly, I guess? Since it's called this month?
Yeah. So the idea is just like, and we're in the process of rebooting it actually to try and freshen it up a little bit. But it seems like, and this has slowed down a little bit actually, but it did seem like in the early days of Kubernetes, there was so much going on. And if you took your eye off the ball for like a week or a couple of weeks, then like you missed so much stuff. So we thought, look, we'll do like a recap of what's big that's happened in the Kubernetes universe or the Kubernetes community in the past month. Just like, I don't know, like every episode is less than 10 minutes. And it's like, if you haven't been watching the news, just watch this for 10 minutes and you can kind of feel like you're still up to speed on stuff.
Yeah, I love it. When you first announced it a couple of years ago, was it like 2019 maybe even? Yeah, because it's going back a while. 2019. I was like, that's great. I'm going to cheat and use this for my Kubernetes learning too, because there is, for just one person, even if you just try to focus on the SIGs, like the official stuff, it's just too much. It's so much.
It is.
It's hard to even focus on one project, much less.
Yeah, like the hard thing for me doing this is like, and I know that you and I have talked about this before, but like when I'm in a creative mode, I put the blinkers on and shut myself out from the world. And then like my brother who kind of helps me out work wise is like, hey, you need to get ready for Kubernetes this month. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So like we're creating this for people that have had their head in the sand for the last month. And oh no, I've had my head in the sand for a month.
Right.
So I have to do like this really hard work for me to catch up and find out what's been going on so I can help other people. And it's like, when will I learn not to switch off myself?
Right.
So that I don't give myself a hard job at the end of every month.
Yeah, I'm sure you feel great when you ship that and you're like, okay, now I know what actually went on and now this task is done and the deadline is over. And of course, you've only got a month before the next one.
I know. I'm a last minute Joe on things like that. I need to get better at that. But we are rebooting it, so kind of going to change the format and stuff, make it a bit cooler. We'll see.
Is this still going to be monthly now that we're even?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good pace. I don't know if you mentioned your last one about the change in the pace of shipping Kubernetes itself. I don't know if that's going to really affect anything else outside of Kubernetes, like the core product, but.
Yeah, I think I think is a step in the right direction. Personally, I don't think it's a big enough step, and I'm not sure that it's the right step. Like I don't know if this is right either, but I've sort of wanted a long-term stable. or something equivalent to a long-term stable for quite a while now, because a lot of my history was in large enterprises that
Hmm.
are like super risk averse and don't want to be revving their software and infrastructure versions all the time, and really like sort of built their Linux businesses or the Linux arms of their businesses around something that they could trust and knew would be supported for at least a couple of years. And I just
Yeah.
feel like Kubernetes is still lacking something like that. But
Yeah. I don't, I know very few that can keep up, that are
I
like
know.
in production and keeping up. I mean, my own course, I shipped a Kubernetes course a year and a half ago, a little maybe closer to 2 years ago, but and
Mm-hmm.
it's already got commands in it that would
Yeah.
not work with the current
It's painful. Yeah.
command line. And it's and those of us that are educators, like that, we don't normally, for those of you out there, like you make an educational product, it's not normal to have to completely replace it every year or two. Like
I know. Yeah.
that's not
Like
what we want.
in my main Kubernetes book, which is like 75,000 words now, I refresh that. Like I go over every page and every line and every example every year, once a
Mm,
year. And
wow.
it's there's so much needs changing. I used to
Yeah.
have this tagline in the beginning of at the start of the book, because when I first wrote the book and it was like 16,000 words, I was like refreshing it like 3 or 4 times a year, and I just can't do that now that it's longer. But I used to have this tagline in the beginning of the book that well, basically I would say that I would like nothing more as an author, and you'll get this right, to be able to write this book and put it on the shelf and have it be relevant for 5 years. That's like
Right.
the dream. But I had this line that says, a book on the topic of Kubernetes. What was it? Is the value of that book is inversely proportional to the age of the book, which
Right.
is like what is he talking about there? But basically, like anything more than a year old, you're starting to get a bit like sketchy. Like, well, is this relevant anymore? And there was a time in my life where I kind of lived off that. I loved it, the rat race, learning the new stuff all the time.
Right.
Whereas now I'm a bit
Right.
like, feel like we're ready for a long-term stable. I feel like, can it slow down a little bit? And I don't know about you, Brett, but I do feel like the core parts of Kubernetes and, the things that you really need to run a production application. Look, it's a cheesy example, right? But pods and deployments and things like that have been
Right.
V1 or generally available production grade for quite a while now. And I feel like a lot of the churn that's still going on is not the periphery, because that's like, I don't want to be disrespectful to the people working on the new features and stuff that are coming, but it's all like good to stuff have good
Yeah.
to have stuff, good to stuff have, good to have stuff, rather than the core stuff that we need. am i
Yeah.
am i making any sense there?
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the advantages is of them pulling a lot of the stuff out, like the CSI stuff, like pulling all the storage drivers out, like taking less out of the core. I love that allows them to be flexible. I would love to see a yearly release, like you're saying, like an LTS
Me
kind
too.
of version,
Yeah.
a yearly release that I know, you know, that command line's not going to break. Like I don't keeping track of versions for all the things that I'm plugging into this ecosystem is quite problematic. And I'm glad they're finally cleaning up some of the old API stuff. I think you talked about that
Mhm.
as well in
Yeah,
Kubernetes
yeah.
this month. Getting rid of some of the stuff that we've. But when I looked back, I'm like, okay, those actually have only existed for a couple of years. So it's not like it's really really old
I know.
APIs. It's just a couple of years. Um,
Yeah,
it takes a team a couple of years to actually, I think, get a really mature Kubernetes environment, like not just in a single environment, but a team that's building Kubernetes
yeah, yeah,
clusters, deploying
for
them. Like
sure.
it honestly, it takes a couple of years to go from like nothing to we've got
Yeah.
Kubernetes everywhere. It's automated. Everyone understands how to use it. Yeah, and I've kind of seen that firsthand this last year with a client I have that is doing that learning process of going from no containers to Kubernetes everywhere in a year, and that it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. So that's why we have people
I
like
don't know
you.
how it is where you are, but I know over here in the UK, like you're totally right what you say there. One of the problems is like people are just struggling to hold on to the staff,
Mm,
because it's still like a premium skill set almost. So some customers that I speak to, or some companies, are like, we feel like we're investing in people and we need to invest in them to get that skill, to run the environment, to maintain it, to keep it going forward. But once they're trained up, they become like a sought after
Right.
commodity, and they
Yeah.
just go somewhere else. And it's like that's a bit of a churn for a lot of organizations as well. And I know they struggle. So there's the technical element that we've talked about there. The project itself is moving at warp speed, Mr. Fisher. But also the staff churn and stuff is still hard for people over here
Yeah.
in the UK and Europe, at least.
It's very much the same here. In fact, a colleague recently commented to me that's like they were saying basically it looks like there's no one out there that is available that knows Kubernetes. So for those of you out there learning Kubernetes, definitely make that a part of your journey.
For your career, isn't? No, it's like it is such a good skill to learn for your career. And to like, look, I wouldn't ever say you could necessarily master it. But you can give it a good shot, and your career opportunities are.
Yeah, and there are tons of people. In fact, I think the other comment that they made to me was, it seems that the bar for being a DevOps engineer has become a lot lower recently, because they were seeing applicants apply to jobs for a DevOps engineer, whatever that really means, because we've had that comment on this show before. That the people that are applying are so underqualified, and I'm not really sure what they mean by I haven't seen these resumes, so I don't know what they mean by unqualified, but I'm assuming that means that they might have said they've done some things, but they don't really have any experience. So for those of you asking about certifications, like if you don't have the experience, obviously certifications will help you. They can't replace experience, but they're going to help a lot. And it sounds like, and these are all virtual positions. All the people I know, they're looking for someone anywhere within a reasonable time zone of their team. So if you're on the fence about, if you're watching this channel, you're probably not on the fence. So
probably not. No, I know that. Like, when people come to me for career advice, probably do to you as well, which I find a little bit strange sometimes. Like, well, at least I feel like they feel like I'm going to unload some wisdom on them, and I just like feel the pressure and crumble under it, and I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, I don't know. But what I do advise people to do is, like, I do advise them to apply for those types of roles. Because when I'm talking to people, quite often, well, at least when I look at the list of skills and qualifications and technologies that people are asking for in a DevOps role, I'm like, well, number one, they're never going to get somebody that can do all of that. So don't be afraid to apply for that job. If you feel like you don't tick every box, like, don't apply for it if you don't tick any of them. But if you feel like you tick a few of them, and you're strong, and you're a go-getter, and you're a self-learner, I do encourage people to apply for them, because it's so unrealistic, some of these job descriptions that are floating out around there. Like, you're never going to get somebody.
Yeah, especially the whole joke around, you must have 8 years of Kubernetes experience, stuff like that.
Of course, yeah. Good luck with that. 7-year-old project or whatever it is. But of course, listen, there's always the people that put on their resume 8 years of Kubernetes experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was using it on the first commit. Yeah. Well, and I've always been one that was super paranoid that there was anything false on my resume. So I would always, I usually had a hard time overselling myself, because I would always undersell, because I'm like, well, I don't know if I should really put that, because I only worked on that for a couple of weeks, and I'm not an expert in it, and I don't want to list it.
I think, like, you need to sell yourself to get through the door, but having a humility like that, and a realistic perspective on life, I think once you get an opportunity for an interview or to speak to somebody about a role, that's super important. I will probably be like you, Bret, that, I speak live a lot, and I speak at events, and people want me to speak to their teams and things. And that they always want a bio, and they want to sell you as like an expert at this and an expert at that. And I'm just like, oh, please don't use that term, or guru or something. I'm like, oh no, like, because it's that imposter syndrome, isn't it? Like, you've made some video courses, or you've written some books, and people think that you know everything, and you're like, you have to say, whoa, hang on a sec, like, clearly I don't. But I've got my brother works for me, a little bit like you have. Beth works for you, and he looks after the bios and things for me now, because he's like, look, you've got to get over that To some people, in some respects, you are an expert, even though you're super uncomfortable with the term. So, like, if, in fact, I think I wrote the bio that you put up for this because I was like, there's no way I'm letting my brother, like, oversell me to Bret and Beth. But there's an element of having to get over that sometimes.
Yeah, and it's also a culture thing too, right? Like here we're trained from birth for the vibrato, the ego that we must have.
Yeah.
But it's always, I always appreciate other perspectives and try to take some of that with humility. That not we're not all comfortable. And we all maybe shouldn't always be comfortable bragging about ourselves, right? We need a little bit of both. And we, so someone, apt-get basically is following up with what we were just talking about. Why does K8s make so many changes? Is it going to slow down sometime? I think it's just this is a complicated tool. Like Kubernetes tries to do lots of things. And so when I look at, I don't know about you, but I look at 2021 and 22, and there are some things in there that I'm excited about. And especially Secure Comp or SecComp and all these other security advancements, because you and we come from that ops world, and security isn't always like day one concerns in these kind of projects.
We wish it was, but it almost never is. I know.
Right.
I feel like, to that question, and it is a concern for me, right? I feel like it is trying to boil the ocean, but I feel like it's trying to boil the ocean in a good way. I'm just worried that I'm a bit naive. I don't want it to go down, and no disrespect to anybody intended here, but I don't want it to go down the route that I feel like OpenStack went down. There were a lot of great people and great organizations involved in OpenStack. I appreciate it's still going. And it was really noble what it was, early on trying to accomplish, but it was too big and too complex. And I super don't want Kubernetes going down that route. Like, for me, I just want it to get simpler and simpler and simpler. And look,
right.
I mean, Kubernetes plus SecComp, if anybody's done anything with SecComp and you've heard about the complexity of Kubernetes, that's like red flag city, go run a mile type thing. But if we can get Kubernetes simpler, and if it can do SecComp in a good way, like I loved some of the default profiles and things that came with Docker when Docker was doing security in its early days and stuff. Like, if we can make this consumable by normal human beings like me, like, somebody that doesn't have to be a rock star kernel engineer, then I'm all for it. So Kubernetes can iterate at this warp speed, and it can boil the ocean, just as long as we're making it simple and consumable for people. That's my super naive take. Yeah.
That's the challenge too of, I think I was talking about this recently on Twitter, that I'm still really bad at teaching or talking about day one ops, and not, like we talk about how to implement something, how to make something work. And then there's everything after that, right? There's what we call now day two ops, which is everything after you've installed it and run it for the first time. And there's so much inherent complexity in that. It's something that I haven't, in years and years of practicing and trying to do all this stuff, I am not that good at. And I think I made a tweet about, like, if I was going to, day one DevOps for me now means always rebuilding my images, always redeploying my, manifest, always testing my Terraform, and having that all automated, because I continue to find that even in my own tools and my own examples, things are getting old and broken, and I don't know they're broken until I try them again and they don't work. And then I don't realize I have images that are years old because I didn't auto-update them. And this automation is almost like, everyone talks about automation first, but do you talk about that at all? Or is that a problem for you that you have thought about?
I don't know, but I really need to. Or I feel like I need to.
Yeah. I think the inherent complexity there is that there is no one way to automate all this stuff that we all have accepted. So then you just have to be an opinion.
I know. Do you know what? For me, like when I teach, and just real quick, Bret, I know that my video was flashing there. I noticed the sun had gone behind some trees over there. So I've just shut the blinds if my lighting changed. But no, for me, like I still feel like Kubernetes and containers, especially for somebody that's super new at it, is already a daunting enough topic that like to throw something else in is like just almost potentially scaring people away. So I try and be as vanilla Kubernetes as I can be. And I'll have people all the time say, oh, like, will you please do a course on, Elastic Kubernetes Service or AKS or something else? Or can you do one that focuses on working with Terraform and stuff? And as much as I would love to do that, I've always been of the opinion, like, and it's not perfect by a stretch, but just if I concentrate on core Kubernetes, then and I don't, it's not a great term, but I don't pollute the content with other stuff. It simplifies it for the learner and gets them up and running to the point where they can, because it's all about getting them up and running to then be able to take the next steps on their own, I feel like. So if I can get them up with Kubernetes and like crack that nut for them and containers and Docker and stuff, then they can have the confidence to go and explore these other tools that will like take you to the next level, like make you more production grade, make you more that's always been my approach. But it also works that like content freshness is always a super hard thing. So like the more I bring in and the more external things I plug into the books or the courses, the more things that go stale sooner. And I'll have people write me and say, hey, this doesn't work with this version anymore. And I'm like,
It's like you're a juggler trying to juggle all these things, and you're just trying to keep all the balls in the air,
Yeah. And I'll say that to people and they'll be like really respectful of it. And they're like, hey, I didn't realize it was so hard for you to keep this stuff. I didn't realize you put so much effort into it. And like, really thanks anyway, and what you've given me has helped. And you're right, I will go and do that other stuff myself. Like you and I were saying before we went live here, like, look, if we had some magic power or technology or superpower or something that could give us more hours in the day or more days in the week or mean we didn't have to sleep or whatever, we would do that, and we'd give you the world, in content and stuff. We just, unfortunately, at this point in time, and I think we're working on it, but we're just mere human beings that like have got a limited time and, well, I speak for myself here, mate, talent. Not you, of course.
Please. We're both highly limited in our
Sure.
single trainer world. I've honestly, kudos to your site Redesign, because it makes me, I look at it and I'm like, am I doing enough?
Mate, my brother did it. My brother did it.
Because there's all this amazing stuff there. There's video training and books, and I've never written a book, so
I cannot take any credit for that website whatsoever. It's entirely my brother, who knows nothing about technology or whatever. It was really hard work for him. I've got a friend who's a UX guy, and he spent countless hours and days and weeks at least with this UX guy working on how to do it. Bless him. I shouldn't say that. That sounds condescending, but it is good. And I like it. And we're going to tweak it, make it simplified a little bit, actually. But zero credit to me, mate.
Right. And I noticed, I was on there today checking it out, and I saw this and I thought, oh man, we've got to talk about this. We got to talk about this, baby. So those of you who are not Star Trek fans, this is influenced.
Bret, if you're not a Star Trek fan, repent and become one.
Fix yourself.
Let's carry on. Sorry.
So how did this come to be? Like for a while on Twitter, you've been Nigel of Borg, and you comment a lot. I mean, not a lot, but you have had tweets that have shown your affinity for Star Trek. So how exactly did a customized book come about?
Yeah. So obviously I have the book anyway, the Kubernetes book. That's my main Kubernetes book, the one I was saying before. Well, it's one of two now, actually, but it gets updated every year. And every year when I update it, I've like put a ton of effort into updating it. And you'll know, it's like a video course. You put in all this effort. And when it's produced, you're like, I am, at least. I'm sure you are. You're super proud, or you're super happy with it, and you're like, oh wow, I've actually created something here. So the new version of the book goes, and I'm super happy for people that can buy it because it's up to date, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then I think, right, what's the next project? And I've got things to go, but I still feel like I'm in the zone over the book for a little while afterwards. So I just thought to myself, what can I do? And so the first thing I actually did was, in fact, before this, was I made a large print edition. I thought, I'm going to do a large print edition. And I was like, what else could I do? And at the time, because I self-published through Kindle Direct Publishing through Amazon, they wrote me and said, we're doing a beta or a beta on hardbacks. I said, all right, so I'll do a hardback edition.
Ooh.
And then I thought, so we published the hardback edition, and I thought, do you know what? Hardback editions are like collector's items, or they can be, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Not for my book, right? But you know what I mean?
They go on the shelf, right?
Yeah. And then I just had this brainwave. Look, Kubernetes has its history in an internal Google project called Borg. There's a lot of the 7 spokes on the wheel, tip of the hat to 7 of 9, all that kind of stuff. Thought, you know what? I'm going to see if there's a Star Trek Borg font available on Google, on the internet, and there was. So I thought, tell you what, I'm going to do a hardback Borg special edition of the book. So look, I've got a copy here on the desk, right? So basically, it's the front cover. That actually says I'm in the wrong place. The Kubernetes book in Borg language or Borg font.
I didn't even know that they had figured that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And then inside, it's got, the star date that it was published, of course. Oh, there's me as well. Nigel of Borg. Right. So that's a bit of hubris calling myself 6 of 9 instead of 7 of 9. I really shouldn't. But then, sorry, like anybody who's not a Star Trek geek is, switching off like, who is this loser?
The tertiary
and then it has
adjunct.
like this special intro that's about like, mate, it's really embarrassing, but I pretend it's so bad. I pretend that I'm from the future and was captured by the Borg, and then there was what was it? I should read. I should read it really, but I won't. Oh yes, look, I got sucked through a tear in the space-time continuum and landed at a KubeCon event. Look, it's a really sad story, but I will say the rest of the book after that is written in English. So you can buy this edition and actually get some use from it. The whole book itself is not written in the Borg font. Like that would probably be a bit too much. But look, I'm just going to say I had a lot of fun writing it. The content of the book is just the normal content of the book, and apparently it's pretty good. If I sell 10 copies of the book, of the Borg edition, I'll be happy. I just had fun writing it. And look, I know I'm speaking a lot here, but can I just show all the viewers this? Because I am going to make a video about the book.
Oh, boy.
Mate, check that out. So I will be Locutus of Borg. And it's got a little laser thing on here. I don't want to shoot anybody, but the laser's actually real. I mean, how cool is that, right?
That is very cool.
So if you're a geek, if you're a geek and into Kubernetes, like it is a collector's item, of course. If you're not into Star Trek, then I'm really sorry that I've wasted 5 minutes of your time there.
It would be super rare if we could get Jerry Ryan to or Patrick Stewart or something. Patrick Stewart's on your side of the ocean. Yeah, right. Like
he is. Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, I'm assuming that you have watched the that first season of Picard with Jerry Ryan coming back in it, and those are my favorite episodes. Those Borg episodes, I was so excited.
I mean, just like this is giving too much away, right? But after watching that, I'd like go to bed and I'd be like dropping off to sleep, like dreaming about if I was able to go and get on that abandoned cube and just infiltrate behind the Romulans or whatever, because I know they've kind of got control of it. But to get on there, oh mate, it'd be amazing. But I'm going to share something else with you here, very, very quickly. I'm not shy. I'm not ashamed to say that. I won't spoil the ending for anybody, but I was actually quite emotional at the end of it.
Oh yeah, of the season.
Probably says a lot about me, like too much of a geek, really. But I just thought it was so classily done, the whole thing from beginning to end. I thought it looks like it's had a decent budget behind it. They've been I felt at least, respectful to like the original storyline and characters and stuff, and the way they brought the band back together and the way they finished it. Like sometimes it's super hard to finish a series like this. When it's done really well, like the ending quite often disappoints, and it might disappoint for some people, like everybody's different. But me, I really felt like they nailed the ending, and I actually was emotional at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about, by the way, is
Yeah.
not everybody maybe has seen this yet, because I'm not even sure if it's available everywhere, but last year, I think it was 2019 maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Picard, a show on Paramount, showed up, and
They're doing a series too, aren't they?
I
Look,
saw
there's right below on the...
That can't be real.
Oh, if that is really official.
Season 2 first look. Okay, well then there we go.
Oh, whew, honestly,
we've got our videos to watch later. I'm excited about Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. I don't know if you got that coming up. So for those of you that don't know, we could probably do a whole show on sci-fi geekery, because Nigel and I are part of actually a little group of friends that we all found each other at DockerCon and realized we were all into the same kind of TV show and movies and stuff. And so we tend to make recommendations to each other over Slack, and we keep in touch that way. And I felt like we're like in the gap right now. Do you guys watch Ted Lasso over there? Is that popular?
I haven't watched it, no, but I'll put it on my list.
Okay.
If we've got it over here.
I mean, it's in no way sci-fi, but it's about an American coach that doesn't know anything about football going over to London area and coaching a football. It's comedy.
But
it's on Apple Plus. I don't know. You have to have Apple Plus, but it stole the show, I think, at one of the awards or something. Shows they had a whole bunch, like 15 or something awards. So that's been our show for this last 2 years, because they just released. We're in the middle or near the end of the second season of them releasing it. So that's my tip for next time.
No, brilliant. Yeah, and speaking of comedy, actually, a mixing of comedy and Star Trek. I did see actually that Star Trek Lower Decks season 2. I think it looks like it's been available for a little while over here in the UK. Obviously, probably longer in the US as well. But that one slipped under my radar. I didn't realize. So I was like, I've got to make some time to watch that as well, because that kind of, for me, that ticks the geek thing, but also makes me kind of lighthearted, smile, laugh as well. It's cool.
Yeah. So Lower Decks is a Paramount show, but it's actually a cartoon, and I'm assuming it's canon, but
I think so.
I mean, it's made by them. But it's hilarious, and I love animated shows. I would say that animated adult shows are grown up shows. Yeah, Rick and Morty. Well, I have a Rick and Morty behind me. This is actually, you can't really see it, but this.
Oh yeah. I see
is
that,
Rick and Morty. It was actually hand painted. I'm very lucky. My wife's cousin is the executive director of Rick and Morty.
I remember you saying.
Yeah, and he handmade that for me, and that was very nice. So I'm
a
huge fan.
Cool. I have a Rick and Morty T-shirt. I wish I was wearing it now.
We'll have, next time we do this, we're gonna have to sync up on our T-shirts, a T-shirt game, even though no one can see them. I have a DigitalOcean Hackathon T-shirt on, so
I'm Captain America.
Today. Nice.
Yeah, check that out.
Well, so next time will be sci-fi and all things nerding out in fantasy worlds with Bret and Nigel. For today, let's go to the questions, because I just realized we've kind of not answered any questions. And I don't know, one thing that it really struck out for me from chat was Paulo. Thank you so much for putting this in there. This is a great story. Bret and Nigel put a perfect place to say thank you to both of you at the same time. I took your courses back in 2016, 2017. They led to a job at Docker. I remember this. I remember this too. And I moved into Splunk, then Rancher, then Weaveworks. Containers and Docker and Kubernetes have changed my career, and this wouldn't have been possible without your courses and books. So thank you, Nigel.
That is epic.
So thank you so much for putting that in there. 26 years in IT. Never seen things so hot and crazy as right now,
and still learning new stuff. I love that.
Yeah, got to.
Hey, so I went to see my football team play the other night, soccer team play an away game in a town called Burton, and a guy who is a Burton fan texted me on social media and says, "Hey, are you going to come to the game? I need to buy you a beer." So I said, "Yeah, I'm coming through the game actually." So I met up with him, and like, of course, he would pay for the beer because I'm a guest in his town and stuff like that. But I was like, "No, let me pay, let me pay." And it's like, "Mate, you've already helped me earn more money in my career. It's the very least I can do."
That's
And
the
it's
best.
stuff like that, what we've just
Yes.
seen there, and connections like that, especially when you can like meet somebody in person as well, where you've been able to be a positive influence. Like it, I don't want this to sound like a humble brag or anything. I know I'm
Yeah.
sincere when I say stuff like this. Like, it's really humbling, but it's like why you do it at the end of the day. That is super cool. Love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it means I can say definitely for me and for those of you out there, like it can make or break our day. Like having a student coming forward and just sort of telling their story. I'm lucky enough to get a lot of them because at the end of my courses, you'll get an email if you complete the courses that says, "Hey, send me an email to tell me your story." And I get a lot of those, and I love them. I love every one of them. I read every one of them. It means a lot to me. And on the same note, anyone who's unfairly critical, I have such a thin skin for, and it can really ruin me for a day. So if you want to ruin my day, like just be really mean to me about my courses.
Right. Let me send Bret an email here.
That's right. That's right. If you want to send me off and have me drinking a beer before 5 p.m., that's a way to do it.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I was tougher on the internet, but I'm still years later. I'm not. So
just a big softie. Really quick, Bret. So do you know what? The reason that I really got into this stuff, and I was fortunate to get into it, but when I was starting out my career, there was a book that was super influential in my career. I've got a copy of it on the shelf over there. It's like a 1,500-page book by a guy called Mark Manassi. I was very fortunate to meet him later on in my career. The book was called Mastering Windows Server 2000. I had his Mastering Windows NT4 as well. And anyway, look, I took that book on my honeymoon. I read it at the beach, by the pool, everywhere. And it was such a massive influence on my career that I said to myself at the time, a dream of mine would be to be able to give back to the community in a small way. And in no way did I ever really believe it would be to the kind of level that we're able to now. But it all kind of, that desire to help other people learn stuff and progress their careers all stemmed from me having that experience with Mastering Windows Server 2000, taking it away on my honeymoon. Like, my wife's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I just loved it so much. But I loved the book, and it was such an influence on me that was like the kind of Kickstarter for me all those years ago.
It's fun. It's amazing how small this community can be. So for those of you that didn't pick up what Nigel he mentioned Mark Manassi, who is basically, to some of us, especially in the Windows world, a legend in tech. Before there was internet legends, there was real world legends. So this is his. He has Pluralsight courses. He has his own website, lots of stuff. But I don't know if you know this, Nigel, but he lives in my city.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's from Virginia Beach, and I don't know if he does it anymore. But I've actually been to his conference and gone and been able to go to dinner with him. And basically, he created a little community, had his own forums. Like, this is all over a decade ago, right? This is like mid 2000s. And he had a conference locally, and one of the best things I thought he ever did was had this great little conference. It was very regional. From what I could tell, it was a very small team of his that did all the work, and it wasn't fancy, but it was at a local hotel, and it was small enough that you could actually hang out with him, hang out with other people that at a big conference, there's this huge divide. You couldn't get access to them so easily. And then we all went out to dinner and got to sit around having a pint and, having dinner together in a small little restaurant that they rented out. And I will always remember that as such a great event. I only went the 1 year, and I was like the year before I started to work my way out of the Windows world and started to do more Linux and stuff like that. And the last thing I remember from Mark was that he was super into IPv6. This is like this is mid 2000s, and he was like me, convinced that the future was everything IPv6, and to some extent it is, but also I don't know what I couldn't give you a single IPv6
I know,
address,
I
right?
know. Yeah, but I think that's by design, actually.
Sure.
Hey, you know how you say how the conference was super small, or it was small enough that you could like meet him and stuff like that. I'll throw this out there as well, right? Because you'll probably get it yourself. That I'll have people will message me at the end of the day at a conference, say, "Hey, I saw you at whatever conference, but I didn't really feel like confident enough to come up and speak to you or anything." And I'm always like, really, what are you doing? Like, so I would say like to anybody, like, we've got 30 odd people on or whatever, or anybody that watches the replay, like if you see either of us, like, no disrespect to you probably are, Brett, but like we're not rock stars or anything like that. Like if you've taken our courses or any of our content or material or something, like we're super stoked if you come up and like, hey, by the like, we're not going to be like mean or like, yeah. Do you realize who I am? Speak to my PR assistant instead, please. Like whatever. It's like, come and say hi. Like that's kind of almost well, it's not what we live for. That's
Yeah.
a bit much, but
yeah.
no, it's super cool. Like don't ever be afraid or shy or anything like that.
Absolutely. No, it makes my day every time I meet someone virtual or in the real world that has somehow been affected by something that I've done on the internet, right? Like, it's super worth it. TRS80 is saying, "What's your soccer team? Up the tune."
Right. Mate, is he having a laugh? Is that right, mate? I'll just say 6 in a row, right? So I'm a Sunderland fan, and he knows that because I've just said it. And we've spanked them the last 6 times. No, well, we beat them 6 times in a row, and then they got a lucky goal at the end of the last game we played against them. They got a draw, but we are several leagues below them now. Unfortunately, we won't mention that. I'll give you up the tune in a minute.
See, I'm starting to learn all of these phrases from this show that you're gonna have to watch.
Too many, mate.
Yeah. I am the person that's like, yay, sports. I will cheer for whatever your team is when I come to your town and we go to a match. Right. Like
I should say, Brett. So that guy, his team is from the nearest town to mine, and they're our biggest rivals. We're their biggest rivals.
Okay.
I'm grown up enough now to be okay about it. But yeah.
So you could actually be in the same room with this person at this point because you've matured?
Possibly. Yeah. If they'd just beaten us in a game, no.
I think that one thing, when we went to DockerCon Barcelona, one thing that really struck me was I did not understand the level of security and control that has to be implemented around football matches because we don't really... I thought we were extreme in the U.S., but we're not. Like, we don't take it to near that level. And if you remember, were you in Barcelona? I'm pretty sure you were in Barcelona.
I was.
Yeah, and we had to make sure
we went to Barcelona. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had to have the right colors on when we went to the football game match because we were possibly conflicting with colors.
Like for me, it's a little bit sad in a way because I haven't done it for COVID, but I used to come over and see the Patriots play a game every year. I'm not a Patriots fan. I like the Vikings, but my nephew is a Patriots fan, and I would bring him over. And I remember being in places like Denver and what have you, just around the Broncos fans, but in our Patriots gear. And I really like that side of it. And my wife and I were just talking about it the other day. We can't think of another sport where you have to like so vigorously police the segregation of fans. Don't get me wrong, I love the rivalry and I love the intensity and I love the friction, but I feel like I know where to draw the line these days. Unfortunately, some people don't.
Right. Yeah, getting the visitors out of town before you're allowed to leave, like all that stuff. That was really a foreign concept to me. So I was kind of that was my first experience with it. But I didn't even know. Shamefully I didn't do research on the teams because I did this at NASCAR. So this is my last sports story because I don't have a lot. But the best advice someone gave me was I've only been to one NASCAR race, and someone who knows NASCAR said, before you go, you have to do a little bit of research and pick your driver and root for that team, because otherwise you're just watching a bunch of cars going in a circle and you don't know what's going on. And that was the best advice they gave me, because I went. Of course, that driver, I think, was gone by lap 50 of 200 or whatever. So we didn't have a backup plan, but that was what really helped make the whole event worth it was, not having any idea what the sport was about other than just cars and a racetrack.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that in Barcelona for the team. I didn't go and like look up their star players and, their record and what, all the rivalries and stuff. And I should have done that because that would have made it so much better. But we'll have to do that again when we finally get back to real world conferences.
Yeah, I know.
So what's your next, you mentioned some upcoming deadlines. What's the next thing that you're excited about that you're going to, that you're working on?
I've got a couple of courses on the burner at the moment. So one of them I'm actually quite interested in. It's Kubernetes. Well, we haven't nailed the title on it yet, but it's going to be Kubernetes on carrier networks, or Kubernetes with carrier networks, or something like that. It's all about 5G, right? So leveraging Amazon EKS in AWS wavelength zones. For anybody that doesn't know, like a wavelength zone is effectively an Amazon outpost, or an Amazon, just think of it as like, well, Amazon infrastructure in like, let's say Verizon's data centers. So you can like use the Amazon API and all that kind of stuff, but place your applications or parts of your applications that need super low latency in the carrier's actual network, so that you've got the power of 5G. But you don't lose that power by hitting, you go through all the satellites, well, the uplinks or whatever, hit the Verizon data center, and then have to go out over the internet to actually reach the app at AWS. So it's just going to be a short course, and it's basically about configuring EKS in Amazon wavelength zones. So I'll tell you why I'm interested in that, right? It's because it's something new, and I still get that kick and buzz out of actually figuring new stuff out, and then being able to help other people figure it out. But that's only a short course, so that shouldn't take too long. I'm currently in the process of updating my Go Fundamentals course for Pluralsight as well, and that has a deadline of October the 18th. And just in case anybody from Pluralsight listens to this, of course, I'm not struggling to meet that deadline. I will most easily finish before that.
Honor.
But I've got that going on. But I've just got to say that Kubernetes on carrier networks is the one that's got my interest at the moment, because it's something new, whereas the other one is just a course refresh. And I think that's kind of going to take me. Look, it won't take me to the end of the year. I've got some CKAD stuff that I'm planning on doing, but the challenge that I'll have is that as it comes towards the end of the year, I will be looking to update the books again, so that I can get those out in Q1 of 2022. So like 2022 editions of the 3 books that I have, even including the Borg edition of one of them. So that's what I've got going on at the moment. Yeah.
That's nice. It is. Are your book refreshes like your holiday thing?
So it will be this year, right? Because the 3 books that I'm going to do, the 3 books that I have, the updates that I'm doing for this coming year, there won't be any addition. Well, I'm not planning any additional chapters or content for them, because I feel like they're about the right length, all 3 of them right now. Whereas last year, when I was doing the annual refresh, I think for the Kubernetes book, look, I'm picking a number here, but I think I added maybe 3 or 4 new chapters, because like Ingress had gone GA, and there was a couple of other things that I felt were mature enough that I could put them in the book. And that's like a lot of work. Whereas this year, it is still a lot of work, because I do go through every page and make sure everything's bang up to date. But there's not like that headache that you'll know of. Like it isn't, because like putting good content together is so much more than just knowing the content. It's like, how do I lay it out in a way that will teach it well? How will the flow be good? How can I use examples that will augment what I'm trying to teach? How do I make sure that I'm not making assumptions that people already know half of it? So it's like, it's so much more than actually knowing a content, being able to teach it or put it across. Like, again, I'm not fond of the term, but it's an art, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
And it takes effort, as you well know.
And sometimes, as soon as I think I'm good at it, I realize I'm not good at it, and it humbles me again to 100%. Have to take a new idea and like you said, not just make examples, and also make sure it's as greenfield as possible, where it lasts, or evergreen rather, evergreen, where it
Yeah.
lasts
Yeah.
as long as it can. My ingress also, yeah, I think some of my videos are still on the beta, and I need to
Yeah.
get those updated as well. The I don't know what's coming or what we're planning on seeing in the next couple of Kubernetes releases, but I will surely be watching your monthly video, YouTube video to get a summary
Yeah.
of that. Um,
Yeah.
so back to the chat, we had a couple of things. Vaughn asked, "Do either of you use a Linux desktop as your daily driver?"
I don't. So
So
I use Mac now.
okay, but if you did, I'm going to change the question a little bit. But if you did, do you know what you would use? Do you have a
I don't
choice?
anymore. So like I used to be, I was really big around wanting Linux to be a great option for the desktop. But I kind of came to the conclusion, and I say this all the time, like I am open to being wrong about every opinion that I have. But I just felt like it was the wrong battle for Linux to fight.
Mm,
When I thought, like, I do feel like Windows 10 was kind of not bad, like way better than some of the older Windows version. It was very workable. I feel like Mac OS 10 or Mac OS, whatever you want to call it, it is just very workable and there's a slick experience. I felt like Linux was like just that wasn't the right fit for the desktop, and look, it's horses for courses or whatever. At the end of the day, I'm sure it can and does make a great desktop. I was just like, I felt like the community could just be better put doing other stuff, but that's not my call to make at the end of the day.
yeah, well, we're that's the thing, is we're all doing computing for different reasons, and
Yeah,
I think, for you and I, we're heavy into video production. We're
yeah,
heavy into having to be productive, whereas like you, I would imagine you. Well, I would imagine you have like what I have is I have the machine that has to work, and that's the machine that we're talking
yeah,
on right now, right? That's the Mac.
yeah,
And then I have servers in the closet. I have, Raspberry Pi. I have, all these other little things. I have other tablets and old Windows tablets and Surface things, and
yeah.
I have all this tech, and that stuff can break all day. But the thing that I have, it's not a tinker machine. It's there to get the
Hmm.
work done, pay the bills. I'm the same as you. I choose Mac. I often wonder if Windows will someday be the thing that I switch back to, because I used to be the only Windows guy until about a decade ago.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose, for Vaughn, for your question, I would probably choose Mint, the cinnamon variant, which
Right.
I chose years ago and just haven't. Like, obviously, there's all sorts of new stuff out there, but I have a virtual machine of Mint that when I need a Linux desktop, I do that. But because I'm on a BSD based OS anyway, I don't find that I need a Linux desktop very often.
Yeah.
And I have friends that have Linux desktops, and you and I both know people, I'm sure, that do that, and I wish them the best. I'm looking forward to my
Absolutely.
M1 showing up and not having fan noise, which is what I've been
Yeah.
talking about all year. Can't wait for the
Yeah.
new M1s to come out so I can get a smoking fast machine that doesn't sound like this jet engine I have sitting here next to me.
Do you know what I have, Brett? So I've got this.
The Air.
It's the old 12-inch Mac,
Oh
and
yes,
like I will not give this thing up. It's like because this is my conference laptop,
yeah.
and it's so small. And it was the perfect size, and I waited and waited and waited for them to bring out an updated version of it, and they killed it. And the day that they killed it, I went straight down to my local It's PC World here in the UK,
Yeah,
and I bought one before they went.
right. Like
And
the newest,
like,
latest. Yeah,
yes, yeah. But laptops for me, I just want something razor thin, and I don't feel like what is it? Is it the Air MacBook Air?
hmm,
Don't feel like it does it for me. So
yeah.
I feel like I'm going to have that for a lot of years to come. The keys, like some of them, the letters have rubbed off them, and
I had one for a
yeah,
little bit too. I was a big fan of it. I love that it was solid state, no fans, no moving parts.
yes, yeah,
Of course, that Celeron processor or whatever it was really was the limiting factor on it. I love the longer
yeah,
battery life, but the M1s now, like, it checks all those boxes. I'm kind of like you. I kind of was hoping that the new M1 gives them all the possibility to have the performance and the small form factor. I would love to see a 12 inch again. Take the 13, move it to a 14. They've already taken the 15, moved it to a 16. So it makes sense to me to do the 12, 14, 16. I would love to see that. If we're making wish lists for Apple, yes, bring back the 12 inch. I don't need speakers. Like, put a little tiny speaker in the corner. I don't care how bad it is. It doesn't. You don't need a speaker. But yeah, all day battery life on a thing that's like a pound and a half maybe. Like that's amazing. My iPad isn't even that, because I have the fancy keyboard now, and I think it's like with the keyboard and everything, it's like in the pencil, it's like 3 pounds, I think. So it's or 2.5 pounds or something. So it's a lot. And you're right. Like, and the one thing that we get with M1, I don't know if you have an M1 yet, but you get instant on. So it's like an iPad where you just open the thing and there's no waiting for it to come back from sleep. There's none of that Intel legacy BIOS stuff in there. So you get instant. My wife is now on an M1. I'm using her as the guinea pig. So she does the video editing, the podcast editing, everything on an M1. And so far, so good. Like, everything works great. Docker's on there. I got Parallels on there. I got Windows on ARM, on Mac, running an ARM as well.
For me, like, for a techie person, I'm quite possessive. Well, not possessive, but like this machine that we're on right now, the Mac Mini that I'm on. I don't. Well, it's not that I don't touch it, but I don't want to, because it just works for me. And I'm like that with my phones as well. I don't want to change them. So like when I buy a phone, like, because I buy Android, the one thing that I look for is I want the biggest, baddest battery I can have. Because as the battery starts to die off over the years, I want to keep this phone for 3 years, because I just don't want to change it. It becomes an extension of me, and it's a pain to get something new. And I know it's easier to set new phones up and stuff now, but new laptops, new PCs, once I've got it up and running, that, like, as much as I love like learning new stuff and tinkering, that is one thing I feel like I'm falling out of love with, or have fallen out of love with, is like building a new PC or or getting a new phone. I'm just like, I'm jaded for that now. It's like, I'm done. Get it working, and I'll run it till it dies and pray that it doesn't die.
Well, that's because now, I mean, for people like ourselves, phones were a neat toy for the longest time, but now they're just like, we're moved on to other toys, right? And that this is now just a thing that needs to function, always work. And I'm the same way with you. Like, I have the Prime laptop, I won't put beta OSs on my laptop. I won't put a beta OS on my phone, because they just have to work. Like, they have to get stuff done. As business owners, that's our lot in life, I think. And I let the tinkering, I've got an Xbox sitting over here on a TV, because I've been playing this Game Pass game Hades lately, which is like a Diablo clone. If anyone out there is in the Diablo and Blizzard games, there's this new Hades game that's really great, and that's what I'm tinkering with. I'm over there, and that's my fun toy right now, is just taking a break during summer, trying not to work too much, and enjoying some of the other stuff that we can do. Okay, so we know you're a soccer fan. We know you're into tech. I know you're into cars too.
I am.
Yeah. What as our last little hobby discussion, what does your car hobby look like?
It's a tricky one, because I like petrol cars, noisy petrol cars. But I'm becoming, and I think it certainly started from my children. I've got 3 children. They're like 10, 12, and 15 now. And they don't go on to me about it anymore, actually, but they did for a while, a few years ago, be like, Dad, you shouldn't really be driving cars like that. It's an emotive topic. It's a political topic for a lot of people. And I get that. I'm just saying that me personally, okay, I love the noise of a big, large displacement engine and a noisy exhaust. But the guilt does actually get to me now. So I use an electric car as a daily drive now, but I don't find it fun. I've got an old 1977 Triumph Stag, which is a British-made car. It's a 3-litre V8, and it sounds amazing. It's older than me. It's not really worth hardly any money, but it's been a large part of the kids growing up. I'll do the school run on a morning when it's not raining, which is not very often in this country. But we do the school run and stuff in it. It's just like, I love that as a car. And I do have another petrol car, a German car, for anybody that's into cars, an AMG C63. It's not like, it's not super expensive car or anything like that. Like, if I could, I would.
Right.
But I feel like it's the last modern V8 I'll be able to buy because of legislation and stuff over here in Europe, and also because it probably, some people might get upset at me for saying this, but it probably, and look, you can buy whatever you want. I'm not one of those people that judges in any way, but I feel like it should be the last V8 that I drive or that I buy. Don't throw daggers at me for that. It's just the way I feel. Look, I could be Mr. Hypocrite and win the lottery tomorrow and go out and buy a bunch of V10 Ferraris or whatever, right? But no, I do like cars. I tell you what I had. You've been American, Brett. I had in the past a Ford Mustang GT 5-liter V8. And it was not an expensive car. Like, I can't really afford expensive cars, but it was the most car I've ever had for my money. And the curb appeal, like, kids on the school run would just like, they'd want to take photos next to my car and like not being like the creepy dad or anything. Like, it was a bit weird, but people just loved that car. And that, like, American muscle cars. Okay, I'll finish this off, right? If I could have any car in the world right now, I would have like a 2020, 2021 Dodge Challenger Hellcat. Absolutely love it, but they don't do a right-hand drive, and it's kind of a bit of too big of a car for some of the roads around where I live. Like, I'd be curbing it all the time, and I'd be knocking the wing mirror off going past tractors and stuff. But if I could have any car, like, I love American muscle cars. But I know even over there, they're kind of under pressure now as well to sort of like, electric Ford Mustangs and things like, who'd have thought it? Like, I'm not sure where I stand.
Yeah. Well, and you and I were part of that generation too. Like, we grew up in muscle car heaven, essentially. And all of the muscle cars were a part of the zeitgeist of the movies growing up. Of anybody that was cool in a TV show always had, like you said, a Mustang or a IROC Z or Magnum PI in his Ferrari or something like that. And I grew up with all of my friends having junker equivalents of the muscle cars out there. And is the Hellcat still manual? Are they still making a?
I'm not sure if they do a manual one anymore.
Super rare. I'm still driving a manual Jeep Wrangler, so that's my beach vehicle, and I've had it for 20 years and I have a hard time giving it up. It's falling apart a little bit. It's got rust everywhere, but I love the manual stick. I grew up with manual. So I'm sad that in fact we're having another one of our nieces come and live with us a little bit. They're all in college, and the rite of passage when you stay with us is we have to teach you manual. And the nice thing is they actually, so far they've all wanted to learn. So this will be the third niece or nephew that we've taught the lost art. It's almost like writing cursive. That's a lost art of driving manual. We do that.
Hey, I know that some of the manufacturers are trying to work on like more environmentally friendly fuels and biofuels and things. And if they can invent something like that works with a traditional internal combustion engine, and add another lease of life to it, man, that I'd be a happy camper, I tell you.
Yeah. I think also too, we're still just at the beginning. Like, Tesla's, to me, the only real production company that can make a fun electric car. And because fun, like you're saying, fun is a factor. And I'm used to having a fun vehicle to drive. I tend to choose vehicles based a little bit on, is this going to be fun for me to have? I'm not always the most practical car purchaser in terms of I don't buy expensive ones, but I don't always buy the one that makes the most sense. Because I'm like, that's not going to be a lot of fun, and I want some fun in my life. So
why not? Heck yeah.
I think I might have to have a Tesla in my future, because that seems to be the only fun electric, at least here in the States, that I know of. I know there's a electric one F-150 now for trucks, but that's just come out, and it's the coolest thing about it is that you can plug it in your house and actually run your house off of it, which is insane. Yeah, they actually
Yeah,
market it as like during a storm, you just plug your car into the house and it
yeah,
reverse charges.
that's
Doesn't really
clever.
charge, but it reverse powers
Yeah,
your
yeah.
house. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
which is crazy. I have a hard time imagining how long that would last, but
I know.
there's a lot of batteries in them supposedly.
Keep the lights on.
Yeah. Well, it's always been great having you on the show, which we haven't done enough, and we will fix that in the future, especially when you have something new released that we can talk about. I knew nothing about the AWS Edge stuff, so that's definitely something I'm going to have to check out on Pluralsight when that's released in the fall, in autumn.
Yep.
For those of you out there, I have some rapid fire questions before we get done, just so the rest of you don't think we were ignoring you in chat. Who is your favorite soccer player? I don't know if you want to put that one out there.
So,
King
so I,
Lawrence asked that.
yeah, I've been a Messi fan for a lot of years. I know I do think probably Ronaldo might be better than him, but for some reason I've always preferred watching Messi play. Lionel Messi, yeah, he's my number one.
I just like that name.
He'll never
Messi.
play for my team.
Well, the next one is, does your K8's book include Hardway K8's installation on cloud and on-prem?
Do you know what? So it used to. Oh, this is the trick of content, right?
Yeah.
Or the balance. I took great pride in, I think it was maybe the 2019 edition of the Kubernetes book, where I removed 40 pages, 40 boring pages of explaining how to install it in so many different ways,
Right.
and cut it down to something like 8 pages, saying, this is how you would do it on maybe Linode, and this is how you would do it on AWS. And then just some pointers to like some of the tools, COPS or whatever, yeah, for doing other installations. And I did have some people afterwards say like, oh, I found that quite valuable, knowing how to. So look, the answer is unfortunately no, not at the moment. Just because so when you self-publish a book, the more pages in it, the more it pushes the printing costs up. And I want to keep the book affordable. Very quick story, right? My book, Docker Deep Dive. I added a load of enterprise content to it, and it went from 200 pages to 420 pages. But the minimum price I could sell it on Amazon for was $51. And I could almost nearly cried when that was the case, because it had been a $30 book. I don't want to sell a $51 book. Well, that was $51. Right. And I wouldn't have made a cent from it. So I put it on for $55, and I was making, I think it was either a buck or even just 50 cents after Amazon's own royalty was taken into consideration. So I have to think about keeping a book short as well, or concise. Otherwise, it outprices some people, which I really don't.
Yeah.
It's all like, Brett. It's a juggling act. It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe in next year's version, I could add some more like that. Because look, I guess 20 pages isn't going to affect really the price of the book. But no, unfortunately, it used to have it, but I took it out because I just felt like it. When people are buying a 240-page book and then 40 pages is on installations, and probably most of them are not the installation you're going to do, I just felt like I wasn't delivering value. And maybe I overthought that. I don't know. So
I think I agree with you. Not that you're asking for my opinion, but
no, mate, I am always.
Yeah, I had the same struggle in my Docker mastery course where, no one really wants the first hour and a half of the course to be about how to install it. But the reality is that depending on what OS you're on, like, you need to figure out a lot of things just to get Docker really running. As much as Docker tries to make it easy, there's at least 4 different types of installs. And then I'm like, well, you might want to install this editor while you're at it. Oh, hey, if you don't have Git, you're going to need Git in there. And so then the things all become really convoluted and complex. So one of the things we're trying to do is shorten those up really to be very just to the point of only getting you the minimal, and then having parts of those videos later sort of fed in the course, so that you're not just exhausted with an hour and a half of, especially on OSs that you don't care about. And some people are completionists, so they'll watch those videos anyway. Yeah. So I feel the same way. It's a balancing act of trying to figure out what maybe I'll just link you to a video that explains some of the stuff that was normally in the course, and that it's maybe bonus material or something. And you could always have a bonus somewhere
I
else
thought that
about.
kind of stuff, like installation stuff as well, I felt like it aged really quickly
Yeah.
sometimes, and it was always like out of date, like, or they've slightly changed the command here, or like, especially when cops was like, I'm not even sure if that's out of beta yet, like they're changing flags and all kinds of things. So I felt
Yeah.
like just pointing them to like a website that, Amazon or
Did
the
they keep that?
community that are behind that are going to keep it up to date was maybe the better option. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great point too. And the reality is, no, very, very, very few of us are ever going to really install Kubernetes that way. The Kubernetes the hard way is a teaching mechanism. But if you can teach the same principles, the same core principles, another way, and I'm also like you, I think that Kubernetes has matured. Like, there's a reason we're at 122 now and we're slowing down the pace of things, is because we've matured it to the point that not everyone that deploys Kubernetes has to know exactly how every certificate is created and relates to every single service, right? So, because a lot of the Kubernetes the hard way is just making certificates and putting them all in the right places and in the right commands. And I feel like I know people that do Kubernetes they manage or work on some form of Kubernetes for a living. And maybe they're not like pure all-day Kubernetes every day, but most people aren't. It's a tool in our tool chest. And those people don't necessarily know exactly how to install it from scratch because they've never had to and probably never will. So I would argue that, you're doing the right thing there to the community. And it's for those that know about the hard way, it still exists and you can go use it. And for the rest of us mere mortals, I think that it's more valuable of our time. Like for me in the Docker stuff, I still have Toolbox in my course, and we're going to take out Docker Toolbox, obviously, because it's deprecated. But there was some things there that kind of taught you how to get, because Docker Desktop does a lot of magic and does a lot of things in the background for you with WSL2 now and all this fancy Windows stuff. And before that, we had to understand a little bit more of the underpinnings, and that was a valuable tool then. But maybe now we can just get away with not needing that knowledge, and we just can move on to the next abstraction, which is what you and I teach. We basically teach abstractions. Whatever the new abstraction is, it used to be cloud. Before that, it was VMs. Now we're teaching containers, and who knows what the next one. You and I will be back here in 10 years talking about this new fangled thing that replaced containers.
With fully grey beards, both of us.
Yep, we're gonna have to have that. We're gonna have the shelves of our entire lives of books. It's like I'm channeling my inner Steve Gibson, which is he's one of the maintainers of the Security Now podcast, and who I have been a huge fan of for 30 years. He made the website Shields Up in the 90s. I don't know if you remember that, but
no, I don't, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was like when Windows 95 came up, and then XP. Remember XP came out? Windows XP came out, didn't have a firewall, so you could use his website to make sure that you had some sort of firewall, and it would probe you from the internet to make sure that you couldn't get to you. And it was called Shields Up, and he makes everything in C, or in assembly. Actually, I think he makes some of his software in assembly.
Oh,
and
respect.
But he does a podcast. They're on like almost episode 900. So if any of you are interested in like real nerding out security stuff, look up Security Now, Steve Gibson, and Leo Laporte. They've been doing that show forever, and he's one of my heroes. And I only mention that because he's mostly gray now and has all the books in the background, and he's the distinguished podcaster. And, I look up to his knowledge because he has this infinite knowledge of everything that started in tech and how it all began. So, well, thank you so much, sir, for being on this show.
Oh, my pleasure.
I appreciate you taking an hour and a half of your day to be here. All of you in chat, thumbs up. Go check out his channel. We'll have all the links below. By the way, if you go in the description, you'll get to his website, which has all of his social links and everything. And you see his Twitter handle underneath his little name over there, opposite side over there. Just go check out 6 of 9 on the internets. And next week on the show, we're going to have Ben Arendt from Teleport. Teleport's basically a company that's pivoted, and they have this new Kubernetes tool for helping you VPN into all your things, including your databases and your Kubernetes clusters. And I'm going to learn about it because I've never used it, but it sounds like a pretty neat tool, and it's got open source project behind it. So We're going to check out Teleport next week. Well, thanks again, Nigel. For these on the internet, we'll be back here next week with Teleport. And until then, go watch some YouTube videos from Nigel.
Ciao, ciao.
See ya. Bye.